Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is how to attract an Aquarius lover. Now, Aquarius is a fixed air sign, but the thing I really want you to focus on is that Aquarius is ruled by two planets, Uranus and Saturn. And I think this pretty much sums up what is going on with Aquarius, is that you can never figure them out. So don't even bother trying. Aquarius has this unpredictable quality that is associated with Uranus. Uranus is associated with being erratic, being rebellious, being revolutionary. And Saturn, the ruler of Capricorn, is associated with being traditional, believing in tradition, believing in organization, discipline. So there's more of that ability to expect certain things with Capricorns, whereas with Aquarians, you need to expect the unexpected. Aquarius is associated with science and technology. And so if you have interests in these areas, you have a natural leg up on somebody else. But definitely because Aquarius is an air sign, having a good mind is probably a necessity. In general, it doesn't matter how educated an Aquarian is. They will tend to be naturally intelligent and naturally inquisitive in terms of, wanting to learn more. So being curious, being someone who is a person of the mind versus of the body. So if you are like a Taurus person and you're coming to life via the senses, this person may really confound you because you can't figure out how they can forget to eat lunch when you have it all planned out, well in advance. And it's really the sign of the absent-minded professor in a way, because they're like in the upper chakras and they're not really sometimes grounded, but that doesn't mean that they are not smart. It's very interesting, isn't it? There are different types of intelligence. I think some people who have studied education like I have know about this. I think his name was Gardner. And one way, I don't know if this was part of it, but this is what I would say, is that there are people who have a lot of common sense. And they really are solid citizens because they go through life. It doesn't even matter what their IQ is or anything, but they're very sensible people and they do sensible things. There are people who are wildly brilliant, but they don't know how to boil an egg, and it really does matter if you have basic, I was going to call them survival skills, but, just being able to navigate the material world comes in handy once in a while. And Aquarians can be quite contradictory in that regard. I associate Aquarius with outer space. And so this is one of those conundrums of all air signs, because they're air signs. Sometimes they get accused of being airheads. And you may make the grave error in this regard and find out how actually brilliant they are. So don't ever underestimate the intellect of an Aquarian, because you will probably wind up on the losing end of that. You may judge them based on how they are interacting with the world and not realize how intelligent they are. So you have to bring your mind to the table. The other thing too is you have to be an open-minded person. Aquarians are truly non-judgmental. Now, again, that will be colored by other influences astrologically. And also, to some degree, the way somebody's raised will tend to influence how they interact with life. But if you're somebody who believes that people are distinctly different and some people are superior to others, you will not get very far with an Aquarian. Now, I will say that because Aquarius is a fixed sign, and especially if they also have Mercury in Aquarius, there can be, that's one of the quirky things about Aquarians, is that they can have prejudices. I would say that they would have the prejudice against a group that they consider to be oppressors, rather than the people, they might champion the underdogs versus the people they feel have been the ones who have committed a lot of the atrocities throughout the history of this world. And they may feel very comfortable having a prejudice against those people, even though those people may not have committed atrocities themselves. They may, think that it's okay to have a prejudice against all those people. And this is just simply because human nature, has a tendency to gravitate towards one bias or another, but also because Aquarius is a fixed sign and it is associated with the collective, the 11th house in astrology. And the collective, if we look at it in terms of the way social groups are arranged, some societies are more collectivist than others. Some are individualistic. Now, that is another kind of a quirk, I would call, about Aquarius, because at the same time that it praises collectivism, it's also the sign, a sign because of Uranus, that it's associated with wanting to be totally unique, totally an individual, and not wanting to conform to a group. So, wrap your brain around that one. And it's funny, I was thinking of Ayn Rand, who wrote The Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged. And she was really, she came from Russia, so she had her own, her family escaped during the Russian Revolution. So she had to deal with the downfall of the upper class in Russia. And so she had her own, I guess, prejudices based on her own experiences, but she was really about the individual and celebrating the individual. And she was an Aquarius. And I think libertarians really worship Ayn Rand. And she was a woman who was very much, probably we would say, ahead of her time. She was definitely not a typical female. So female Aquarians are not going to relate to life in the way that a male may expect them to. Although I'm speaking from somebody from an older generation. If you are someone in your 20s or 30s, you may not witness the male-female dynamic in the same way. And it may seem a bit like the gender roles are not the same and solid as they were before. So I guess it depends on perspective. But speaking of gender roles and speaking of even sexual orientation, Aquarians are, as I said, very open-ended. So they may not be interested in monogamy even. So when I said that you have to come to them with an open mind, I meant you better have it wide open. And I'm sure that there are many, many Aquarians who are monogamous, so don't get me wrong. But I'm talking about this desire to be a nonconformist and how that may affect their romantic life. But definitely if you're somebody who is a cookie-cutter conformist, you may find yourself, and you're attracted to the Aquarius for some particular reason. I don't know why you would be, except that they do say that opposites attract. So maybe that's always a possibility. But just in general, you better have something within you you have a little bit of the freak in you, because they are very much against conformity. And this also goes for being conservative. If they grow up in a family of hippies, they may be the person who's like a materialist and a conservative. And I'm thinking of Family Ties, that kind of a dynamic. Another way to really attract an Aquarius person is to not be predictable. If you keep them on their toes, they will feel consistently stimulated. And again, this is not to suggest playing games. This is just if you have that type of personality as it is. Or maybe if you want to cultivate that within yourself, which is actually, I think, a good thing, because some people tend to get into ruts and they just do things over and over again. But being capable of kind of shifting things around a little bit will keep the Aquarius person guessing, and they will be more intrigued by you in that regard. Don't be too emotional. Aquarians are coming from the mental plane, and emotions for them are a bit of a bugaboo because emotions are irrational. So, that probably feels kind of crazy to them. Even positive emotions can be a little bit unnerving for Aquarians. I'm talking about if you gush all over them, oh, I love you, I always want to be with you. That may feel suffocating for them because they are freedom-loving, but also they may not be even that touchy-feely. Some Aquarians may be kind of standoffish physically and not like that heavy dose of affection physically as well as verbally or emotionally. So if you're the type of person who is easily offended if somebody doesn't return your warmth with the same intensity as you are giving it out, then that's going to be problematic. If you can accept them for who they are and not expect them to emote the way that you do or even be physically demonstrative the way that you want them to be, then that's a beautiful thing, because you will be more tolerant of how they choose to express their affection. Because I don't think anybody would argue with me and say that Aquarius is one of the more romantic signs. I'm sure that they are not. And some people want those grand gestures. Leo, I'm talking to you, and Leo is the opposite sign of Aquarius. So they tend to be that magnet to one another. And yet that, when two same sides of the magnet, they kind of repel each other. That's kind of like the same deal, because we're talking about oppositions here. But there are going to be they're complementary signs. So they may be attracted to one another and yet repelled at the same time. But if you find yourself if you're a Leo, find yourself crushing on an Aquarian, and you're coming at them with this really like theatrical type of love, and you're hugging them and you're telling them you've never had love like this, and they're kind of like their skin is crawling, or they're giving this vibe that it's not something that they like, don't be offended and think that it's some kind of reflection on you and whether they even care about you. They might care about you, but they don't express love in that way. And they don't necessarily want to broadcast it. So if you're the kind of person that wants everyone to know who it is that you're in love with, you may have a person who is much more low-key in that area. Okay, well, I think I'm going to leave it there, and I hope that you enjoyed this. Take care. Bye.